Alright, when we last left our band of intrepid adventurers, they had met with Zacharias Rowe, a hero of the North and a man on a mission, who had found them with a divination spell he had created himself. Offering to take the green adventurers under his wing, he promised that, should they be able to prove themselves, he would become their patron and work the political maneuverings necessary to ensure they are one of the parties chosen to enter Undermountain. We now join them as they set out on their first adventure as a party. Who knows what claims have already been made at the meteor's crater, and who they will have to negotiate with when they arrive. So with messenger bag in hand, they check their gear and head toward the north gate, intent on trying to make it to their destination quickly.
You grabbed your objects, got everything ready, grabbed probably a couple of bites of food from the market on your way by. The streets are filled with vendors this time of year for the festival, so you're actually less likely to be able to not find food, but more likely to end up buying junk food and candies from street vendors right now. But once you reach the Serpent's Gate, you find that the gate is flung wide open as all manner of people are trying to get in, but you are allowed to pass through freely. When you meet up on the inside of the Serpent's Gate is when the bag at Bethaniel's side hums slightly. You pull out the email and find that it is a set of written instructions letting you know from Waterdeep you need to travel along the North Furrow Road, which roughly follows the Desserin River. About 6 to 10 hours outside of the city, in the hills that are just northwest of the Desserin River, is where it fell. It should be a quarter of the way between Golden Fields and Waterdeep. Golden Fields is the verdant jewel of the north, a place where the followers of the Goddess of Grains regularly sends out massive shipments. If you have eaten something fresh, it was probably from Golden Fields. Once you set out, it is just a matter of time before you reach your destination. You're not assailed by anything on the road. Indeed. Unfortunately, it is as you reach your destination that the day begins to wane and the sun finally sets completely behind the Sword Mountains, leaving you with the night encroaching as you approach the crash site of this meteor.
Well, we're almost there. There's no point making camp and waiting till morning. Somebody else might get there.
Yeah, why don't you lead the way?
Those of you without any light source and do not have dark vision can only see about 5 feet around you. The only member of your party that has dark vision is Bethaniel.
Well, it's a good thing I'm the one carrying the messenger bag. I should be able to read these letters in the dark.
Those emails, it's like they have some sort of backlighting caused by an arcane device with a backlight torch.
If you lay the paper down on the outside of the bag itself will actually glow, and it will backlight the message for you to read it in the dark. But it's only very faint glow, like kindling.
We're going to establish the bag as a Kindle.
Angela and Bethaniel, you come close enough to see a faint wooden object sticking out of the ground. It's easily identifiable as a sign, but unfortunately, unless you get much closer, it is hard to make out what words on it. Bethaniel, however, you can read that it says, "Our Mine." Our has been misspelled as H-O-U-R. Everyone, go ahead and roll a perception check. Ara and Natalia notice something to the northwest. They can't see very far, but that's actually to their benefit because there's less to distract them. Far away, about 15 to 20 feet, you can see just the faintest glow in the underbrush.
Oh boy.
Bethaniel, look off into the northwestish. Do you see that glow under the brush there?
Once it's been pointed out to you, Bethaniel, you can most definitely see faint, glowing purple and blue hues coming from the underbrush there.
Yeah, I think I see it.
Shall we check it out? Is that what we're looking for?
Suppose we should.
Are meteors blue and gold and purple?
Bethany, you be our eyes while we approach cautiously.
Does anyone want to light a torch?
That possibly would be a good idea.
The torch flares to life, causing Nathaniel
cool.
to have to take just a brief moment to adjust. Those humans and their unevolved eyeballs.
And after I light my torch, I'm going to go into that general direction of the item.
You brush aside a few of the leaves, and you find a softly glowing blue mushroom with a few small specks of black sticking out of it. The black bits shine like they're metallic or perhaps some kind of stone like obsidian. Looking past that first mushroom, you see several dozen more. You are able to identify the kind of mushroom this is. It is most definitely poisonous, but it's not supposed to glow like this. That's not normal. It should be slightly pale white in color with black flecks. A deep, low rumble, like someone rolling a large boulder into place, or a massive frog groans through the woods before you.
Whoa.
Angela and Natalia roll perception.
Oh no, at least it wasn't a dexterity save. Oh.
Natalia is very fixated on the strange glowing mushroom. You are relatively sure that there is something very wrong about these mushrooms, Angela, but you're no botanist, so unfortunately, there's not much more to tell. Natalia looks like she's about to either headbutt the thing or pop it into her mouth and start chewing. You're not sure which.
Okay, put that down.
I'm not touching it. I'm not gonna eat it. I was just looking at it. Calm down.
Suddenly, and without any warning at all, a large, thick, pink tendril flies out of the woods and slams directly into Natalia's torso. There's a wet slap as they connect, and you hear the massive groaning croak again as a large piece of the underbrush rises up to greet you. With several mushrooms specking its back, the giant toad blinks at its most recent food source.
Natalia shrieks as the aggressive amphibian restrains her, the slick prehensile tongue wrapping around her torso in a flash. Ara, protective of her companion, calls out, and a pillar of white fire crashes down upon their foe from above, searing the warty hide of the massive toad. Despite the beast's sudden appearance, Angela doesn't allow herself to stay stunned for long. Her warrior instincts kick in and she lashes out with her longsword, foregoing her shield to bring it down with both hands toward the toad's tongue. It would have sliced clean through, too, were it not for the elasticity and speed with which it retracted, as the beast gurgles with pain and anger. Freed from her captivity, Natalia whirls on her attacker and slashes near its shoulder before hopping back to try and stay out of the monstrous animal's grasp, cautious of the speed and precision of the adhesive tendril poised in its mouth. Prayers begin to drift around the trunks of the nearby trees as Bethaniel prays aloud, his voice rising in strength until at the crescendo he raises his holy symbol high and shakes it lightly. The sound of a bell peals through the woods, and not a small one. A bell 100 times larger than his silvery medallion, engraved with a full gleaming moon over a starry sky. The bell tolls and the toad bellows. Its wounds spasm and grow black as if inflicted anew and infected with a horrible curse. With a final terrible croak, it pulls back, crouching and preparing to flee as it leaps away, and Angela lunges. Slashing out again, she catches its hindquarters, but the creature crashes into the underbrush, leaving behind a bloody trail as it can be heard fleeing into the woods. The group stands still to catch their collective breath, and as the surroundings grow quiet, they wait and listen. But the toad does not return.
So can I check to see if I know what that creature is?
That was definitely a toad, although it was much larger than your normal toad. Giant toads are known to be a thing that exist, but the glowing mushrooms and the strangely aggressive way that it acted leads you to believe there's something more at work here than just a big frog.
It's dark as heck. The monster buggered off. I don't think pursuing it into the woods would be a good idea. So I'm thinking we should just stick to the clear area and proceed forward.
Just a little bit past the fence in front of you, you can see the dark pit begin to taper off. There is a very large hole in the ground, and you definitely are unable to see the bottom of it from here. Was that it for your turn?
So in the distance there, I can see the foot of that frog. Can I shoot crossbow at that?
All right. Your crossbow bolt flies true and pierces through the thick hide of the frog, and with a loud croak, you can all hear a thud and a long exhale as the creature collapses.
I did.
How new does this fence look?
It looks very new, actually.
Uh-huh.
What the fuck was that?
I definitely heard
Forest
something.
Critters.
That wasn't a forest critter. That sounded like a goblin or something. Can I roll a perception check?
Sure, go ahead.
Are you making... Okay, hold on. Before that's something you're queuing up on Roll20?
What?
That is definitely... Okay, I'm rolling a perception check.
Wait, what?
Because that's fucking terrifying. All right, because I'm hearing sound effects come through.
I clearly heard something like a...
Yeah, and then something go... And that's what I'm rolling perception on.
You definitely heard something from the east?
Oh, fuck.
Somewhere beyond the sign behind where you came from.
All right. Bethanel, I heard it from your direction, roughly. Can you get back over with us so you don't die? Oh, that is fucking terrifying.
That sounded close.
A soft and chortling gurgle comes from the bushes directly next to you, Bethaniel, and you see that one of the leaves, or at least you had thought it was one of the leaves, stretches out, and a small green hand takes hold of the grass and dirt at your feet and begins to pull itself out of the underbrush.
It's a fucking goblin. Fuck you, goblin.
Hold on. The creature that emerges from the underbrush is one that any seasoned adventurer would know from a mile away, and that any inexperienced apprentice would know on sight. It is most definitely a goblin.
It has not attacked us yet.
Instead of launching into some ostentatious battle cry and hurling a javelin in your direction, the creature crawls, and it is when two long tendrils slither off of its back and pull it forward that you recognize there is something very wrong. The creature's legs have been fused together, and its arms meld into its torso, twisting at the wrist in order to pull itself inch by inch across the ground. Its skull is split vertically from forehead to chin, and much more widely across the mouth. And as the cold black eyes of the goblin look up at Bethaniel, you can see a plea for release in them. But at the top of its skull splits open, revealing a row of sharp teeth and 4 flailing tentacle-like appendages.
Oh gosh.
It does not seem to be undead, as there are no signs of rotting, but whatever has happened to twist this creature, even a goblin, most often seen as the most simple and evil of the races that walk the forests of Faerun, did not deserve this fate. Willingly or not, the tentacles pull it toward you, and the top of the creature's skull snaps like an octopus's mouth.
Bethaniel's face, most often carrying a rather stony expression, twists into a mask of horror. This abomination is the antithesis of everything good and natural, everything his goddess and his vow represents. Yet again he swings his medallion, and yet again it tolls. The sound is deafening, and the mutant screeches, twisting, its skin popping and splitting against its untapped convulsions. Infuriated, the pitiful pile of flesh lunges upwards, twisting in midair at unnatural angles as it reaches out to grasp at the cleric. Fortunately, his skill in deflecting assaults with his shield serves him as well here as it had on the battlefield, and the malformed mass only slaps wetly against his defenses before being thrust back. Angela, equally horrified despite her lack of understanding, marches forward and swiftly brings her blade to bear. She carves a notable chunk of flesh away, but if it was a vital portion, the misshapen goblin did not show it. Instead of the typical spurt of green that a goblin would expel upon such an injury, the sorry sack of sorrow instead oozed a thick, black ichor, its flesh writhing with small white worms, as if its body were a hive set to hatching from the force of the blow.
Ew.
Motion and noise come from a new source nearby, and though they are already dealing with one threat, they cannot just ignore another that comes tumbling into view.
What's that?
As Angela moves around and moves by the fence, 3 of the fence posts sway and shimmer and take on a purplish appearance. Tendrils split the wood, and strange roots flood out of their bottom, and they pull themselves free of the fence and begin lumbering slowly toward the party.
Oh gosh.
The first one flops onto its side and begins rolling at a quite accelerated rate in Angie's direction, the tendrils off the side of the purple wood pushing at the ground in order to accelerate it. The second one reaches up and grasps the nearby fence and pulls itself across the top, walking along the surface of it in order to reach Natalia.
Well, I guess I'm attacked.
As the approaching impossibility draws within striking range, a strange calm settles over Natalia. For whatever odd reason, she is suddenly reminded of her youth, the chilly days spent training with a sword, swinging again and again at wooden training posts, not unlike this one. Although lacking tentacles and murderous intent, the motion is practiced nonetheless, and her blade bites into the side of the animate object with such confidence that for a moment she almost imagines that the spray of snow being knocked from the top of the training dummy would surely come next. In an instant, though, that sense of familiarity dissipates. The rigid shell gives way to a fleshy core, when the wood bleeds black around the wound, and when Fence screeches in pain as she pulls the blade free with a start, mortality is suddenly thrust fresh upon her mind. Natalia was not in a training yard anymore. Panic grips the heart of the group of rookies for a moment. A battle was one thing, and certain to be nerve-wracking for first-timers, but fighting something completely unknown? Its body incomprehensible? Not one of them fled, though, if only because when a mortal body is filled with adrenaline, there is a critical choice to be made, and time runs thin. Often, moments of danger have few choices, but fight is always an option. Fight is what they had prepared for. Fight is what steeled Natalia's nerves, gripped the pommel of Angela's sword, creased Aura's bitten lip, and furrowed Bethaniel's brow. And fight they did. Aura surges forth and unleashes scorching holy flames to consume the twisted goblin. Angela dips into an unstoppable forward lunge, skewering a fence post, only for it to hiss and flail at the end of her weapon, spearing Aura's gut with its tendrils. The merest touch seems to transmit death without pretense as the redhead's lungs find themselves void of air. She wheezes with shock. Tentacles recoil, though, as Bethaniel rings the bell again and again, while the warrior women oppose the posts. Natalia cries out and drops her shield as a tentacle stings into her shoulder, but she merely grasps her sword with both hands and changes her grip. Her riposte wraps up the waving limbs and then drives down into the post with renewed fervor. Bethaniel, now stuck in with his allies, fields more desperate lashes away with his shield and cries out with determination.
As the bell rings out in the deep night, the last of the creature's life energy leaves its body, and you can hear it whisper a thanks in broken common before it collapses and begins to wither, its flesh crackling and singeing before its body falls apart into what looks like charcoal.
You rest well, little bugger.
I don't think this thing's coming back, so good.
Their back now clear of apparent threat, Bethaniel and Angela move as one, ushering Ara behind and closing before her. Facing the fence posts, they use their bodies as a steel gate, closing and denying their foes access to their heavily injured companion. Bethaniel is stung for his efforts, and though this pain makes his hand ache, he knows the same blow would have done Ara in. Just like so many other things in his long life, he endures it, because he must, because it is where he was needed. The three intrepid adventurers place their backs against each other, facing off against the three living objects, if their horrid state could truly be called life at all. Blow after blow is exchanged, and none are left unscathed. But in the end, blades sing, bells ring, and fires bring the false life of the posts to an end. One by one, each combatant in the midst lays claim to their destruction. One hewn in half by Natalia's vicious swing, another split down the center by Angela's own determined strike. The last is blasted by negative energy with such force that it vibrates apart, the bell of the cleric tolling its destruction, and like the tears of Saluna falling from the moon, it breaks apart into fragments, which then combust, discorporating into a purple mist that leaves behind no trace at all.
At the edges of your perception, in the black and white area of your dark vision, Bethaniel, you start to be able to make out a distinct shape in the distance.
Oh, fuck.
It is a tent, a sign of, some manner of civilization. A small set of embers next to it softly flicker, giving off next to no light, but it is the darkened shapes and gray pools nearby the tent that let you think it's possible that you have found the miners that came here. Bethaniel says that he sees things that aren't moving, but then you're almost sure that you saw one of those bodies, the furthest away from you in fact, shift slightly, as if the person is still breathing. Perhaps they are just severely wounded. There is quite a bit of blood, but people have survived worse. There may be a survivor.
Okay, stick close, guys. Let's go check them out.
The second body, the furthest from you, definitely seems to still be breathing, but it's labored, hitching breaths, the sign of someone who is severely injured. As you approach the body, the breaths become more ragged, and the jerking gasps cause the creature's torso to undulate as if it's gasping its last breath. But then you realize you don't hear any breathing, and as Angie steps just a little bit closer, it becomes apparent why. The creature's torso twitches and jerks, and then bulges at several odd angles as if its bones are attempting to rip free of its skin. And in a visceral display, the corpse of the once man splits open, and several tendril-like creatures whip and writhe around on the ground.
Oh.
It only takes a second for you to recognize what you're looking at, because the tendrils that come off the side of it and the maw that sits at the front of it makes it look like a centipede, but there's no mistaking what this is. The man's intestines have animated post his death.
It's Dead Space.
Oh, God.
And that is where we leave our band of beleaguered comrades as they face off against yet more twisted creatures present at the site of the meteor's impact. It is becoming ever clearer that there is something very wrong here, and those in the party who were hoping to find survivors now worry that there may be none there. Still, they press on, for if this meteor has done so much damage to the flora and fauna in so short a time, it must be secured and either destroyed or contained, lest it spread its corruption to other denizens of the frontier. Thank you all so much for joining the party on their adventures, and I hope you had as much fun watching as we had playing through it. There is much more adventure to come, and I promise not all of it is so gooey. Since we reworked the first episode, we have seen a huge explosion in views, and we at the Forever DM Adventures could not be more blown away by the community support. This is the last rework for now, and finally brings the beginning of our series in line with the quality you can expect in our later episodes. Please share this adventure with your gaming group, your friends and family, heck, anybody who likes a cool adventure story. And if you want to support our channel further, you can always come join us on Patreon or buy me a coffee, and join the support or Discord for all the adventure you can handle. We're live there all the time. With that said, however, I should really turn to the real heroes of our story, and that is the supporters that made it possible for us to make this adventure happen together. This starts, of course, with those in the power tier. David, Doodle Poodle, Jay Jones, John the Wicked, and William Smith. In the planar tier, All Is Fiction, CJ, Darth Cavalier, Gordon Danke, Ice Dragon, Joshua Williams, PP and TT807, and Sparkle Lord the Fabulous. In the adventurer tier, we have Bastion Falconwrath, Dragon Tempest, Ice Commander, John R300, Justin, Katie, Mystics, the Rosilla Streaming Network, Shadowmencer, Sneaky GI, Sucrash, and V. In the Quest Giver tier, we have Anon44, Bird or the Cage, Emanon, Kate, Kyla, Night Archer, Robert Mischief, Rio1990, Sephiroth Kurosame, and Slathar Silcom. And in the Townsfolk tier, we have Adrian, Biz Adrian, Doodle Poodle, Enrique, Ginseng3, Jaden Hill, Matus, Okada, Scott Stedman, Sergeant Humpty, Shu Genja, and Tom Brazeau. As always, an extra thank you for the adventurers that played in this episode. Credit to Stephen Yeardley for making the map and module this adventure was based on, and the members of the creative team that make all of this so beautiful. Doodle Poodle, Nala Fontaine, Shadow Wolf, Scorpius187, MC_Cheshire, Thriving Inferno, and the Forever DM, me. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next one. Good night, all.